Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. This season's podcast is sponsored by Oboz Footwear, based out of Bozeman, Montana. I proudly wear my Oboz footwear for hiking, traveling, and more. They have many styles and options to choose from for all your winter and hiking needs. Looking for hiking boots, recovery shoes, or fast and light hikers? Look no further and check them out at obozfootwear.com. Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, series 3. This is episode 2. This series is all about travel. And in today's episode, we are going to get into planning and considerations. So if you've made it this far, that means you're interested in taking the next steps. But of course, as with anything, when we're trying something new, there might be things that come up for us. Know that if you're feeling anxious or nervous or scared, that's totally normal. And traveling can really bring up a lot of those anxieties. Why? Because you're going somewhere new. You're maybe going to experience some things that you're not used to. It's going to help you to grow, really. So just know that it's normal to feel these feelings. And as with life, a lot of things need to just be felt, heard, understood. And then we can come in and just say it's normal to feel what you're feeling, but we're still going to do it because that's where the growth happens in life. And I do believe travel is such a big part of that personal growth. I just want you to know that is very normal and it's okay to feel those feelings. And with preparation and knowing what to expect and taking the steps so that you are able to get out there and know that you are confident because you've planned, you've done the research, and you really have the tools you need, will really help you as you're going down this path. Just a reminder to take this journey one step at a time. Take this process of travel one step at a time. No one starts being a pro traveler. It takes time and energy. And as you get into flow, you figure out what works for you, what doesn't. There will be some trial and error, but hopefully by the end of this episode, I've given you some information that will help you as you're moving forward. Obviously, the first thing you need to do is decide that you're going to give this a go, right? And once you do that, then it's time to start doing that research and then taking the steps to commit and then book your travel experience. Let's get into how to pick a place or how to get started, how to get that clarity. One of the things that I love is daydreaming. I have been a daydreamer since I was a little girl. There's this photo that I have of me as a child, just like looking up and daydreaming and thinking. And I tend to spend a lot of my time doing that. And it's really allowed me to think outside of the box, to dream big, to try different things. And so I think allowing yourself to daydream, and as I've been on this journey of growth and also manifesting and creating a life of my dreams, a lot of it has had me really step aside and not worry so much about the how, but focus on knowing the feeling that I want to feel and then creating from that place. And so when I thought of travel, I would think of this grand adventure inside of me, this openness, this excitement comes up for me. And so let's tap into that. I'm just going to ride this intuitive wave. Let's start by closing our eyes, taking a couple deep breaths, tuning into what I was just talking about. When you think about the word travel or adventure, what do you feel in your body? Acknowledge that. And even if you're listening to this, obviously when you're driving, maybe come back to this, but as you're thinking about this at some point after this podcast, maybe sit with some of the things that came up for you. Start writing it down, like the feelings you were feeling. And even if you're feeling afraid or you're like, how am I going to do this? Write that down because that is going to be really helpful as you're planning. So, going back to that feeling and your why do you want to travel? What in there is calling to you? It might be you feel like there's something out there, some adventure. Maybe you feel called to a certain culture, or maybe there's some festival that you heard of somewhere, or there's a place that you saw in a magazine. So just to get your thoughts going for maybe something that's deeper, though, within your essence, your soul. And as you're thinking about that and feeling into that, one of the biggest things that I've learned is take away the how and try to stick to that feeling that you're feeling inside that is a feel good, that makes you feel open, that makes you believe in miracles. Maybe it's a sense of wanting to connect with other cultures. Have that be the foundation for building this trip for yourself. Okay. So, the how is sometimes you might be like, I don't know how I'm going to get the funds for this, but trust me, the universe has your back. And when you start taking the steps forward, miracles start happening. So that's something that I want to start off with is just tuning into your own inner knowing and getting clear on that. Another thing that is really helpful with that are vision boards. I absolutely adore, love, and teach workshops on vision boards because I think vision boards really help us to tune into our deep desires. And again, taking out the how is this going to happen, but just putting some things down on a vision board, whether you go and you get a board for yourself. And actually, there's a workshop on this on our YouTube page, our 52 Hike Challenge YouTube page that I can add into the show notes. But you can make your own vision board party, get some magazines, get a couple pieces of glue, some fun pens, a nice thick board, and then just start pasting things down when it comes to travel that really call to you. And as you're looking through those magazines, things will pop up and you'll be like, I'm really attracted to that. So, my last vision board that I did, I want to say it was last year. Well, it wasn't my last vision board, but it was one of the last ones that I made was right before I went to Africa. And I found all these magazines with like elephants. And I got that sense of what it would be like to go and see these elephants in a safari. And I posted and published that, or I put that on my vision board. And so vision boards have really helped clarify where I'm at. What do I want to experience when I travel? And it's been pretty magical to go back and see vision board after vision board come to life. And whether it was I posted that I wanted to go to India or I wanted to go to Bali or I wanted to scuba dive somewhere, they've all come to life. And so they're very powerful. And then keeping those vision boards somewhere near you so that you can refer back to them. As I mentioned, a big part of that is looking at magazines. One website that I really like using, and it's also an app, is Pinterest. Sometimes I go in there and I'll type in a word and just get ideas and I'll put it on a board or I'll pin it to a board. And that kind of just reminds me. Sometimes I'll just go on there and just be like, oh, yeah, I want to experience that. I also like journaling, like for myself. Once in a while, I'll go in and I'll put a dream list of places I want to travel to. And I'll go back and see, did I actually go there? And I'm saying this with all honesty. Like, there's been a lot of places I've been able to check off my list. And there's so much to see, there's so much to experience. And of course, you might have heard of places through books, through videos you've seen, through shows you've watched, even getting recommendations from friends of, hey, what are some places that you recommend that I visit? What are some of the favorite places you've traveled to? So that's a really great way to get clear. But I want to say that I truly believe internally we have places in our soul and in our essence that want to teach us that maybe there's a reason why that place has come up deeply within you, within your own subconscious mind of these incredible places. And I can say that all the places that I visited that felt like a dream, like someplace I really wanted to experience, and I did, they've all been so magical for my essence as a person, from helping me to grow and to think bigger and think outside of the box. And so I really feel like there's a reason why internally I just had these visions or dreams of places I wanted to visit. So I do feel that there's something there for you as well. Other things that will help you to think about where you want to go and what you want to experience are things like, what are some of the activities that you want to experience or prioritize when you're out there, when you are taking a vacation? For example, in the past, I used to take a lot of trips, and a big priority was hiking and diving. When I would pick a place with my partner at the time, we would look at what offers us both of these activities. They were really important to both of us. Now, at this phase and time in my life, a big thing in my journey is I want to hike. I want to explore cultures, but hiking is a big part of it. Nature is a big part of it for me. I also really love beaches. Do you love beaches? Are you interested in historical sites? Do you want to see a place that you saw in a movie? Is it more of a cultural experience? Do you want to see how other cultures live and experience life? Do you want to go to a place that has some sort of historical significance? Do you want to go visit where your family came from? That's a huge one. I think that in itself could be like a whole episode of cultural, not only clarity, but like reconnection with your own roots. So, if you have done some sort of 23andMe test, you can find out like what backgrounds do I have and where did I come from? And I truly believe that even now, when I went to El Salvador, which is where my family is from, I got to, as an adult, experience things and figure out, why am I the way I am? How does my culture impact me as a person? Even though I didn't grow up there, how does that play into my life and how I am as a person and what I do? And so that has been really, I think, special. And maybe another way of figuring out places that you want to visit. So that's another really great way to connect with yourself and your own wisdom and guidance and gauge, what do I want to do? By the way, you might also love things like Disneyland and theme parks. And so, for example, if you love Disneyland, you might want to be like, oh, yeah, I want to go to Disney World in Florida or whatnot. So those things will help you to solidify. There's other things too. I mean, we could go on and talk about, but I know there's something called vacation races where people go do a race to a national park and then they go visit a new place. So you could also partner your trips with something that you like to do athletic wise, right? Or maybe there's a tournament somewhere. So lots and lots of options. Other things is like, what is your travel style? Oh man, we could delve into this for hours, but really, is it something that you want to plan on your own? Do you have the funds, and maybe do you want to go with a travel agent? You want to have someone put all of the plans together for you? Do you want to travel in a group? There are so many companies out there that take people on trips. 52 Hike Challenge does an annual trip. So we just got back from Patagonia, which was amazing, as I mentioned earlier, and we had 8 on the trip, not including the guide. I think there was a sense of comfort with the group that they were coming to do something really epic, but also had the sense of, I'm not alone and I get to explore a different place. And that is a really wonderful part of the journey. So there's lots of trips like that that you could take. Do you want to travel with a spouse? Do you want to travel with family? Do you want to travel with friends? Do you want to solo travel? That's a huge possibility and it's a huge opportunity. I wanted to take a moment to thank this season's Rise and Wander podcast sponsor, REI. REI is the outdoor gear retailer of the 52 Hike Challenge. I've been a member since I started my 52 hikes in 2012, and they've helped outfit me for all things hiking and outdoors since then. Becoming a member has many perks like 10% back annually on eligible purchases, a satisfaction guarantee, which gives you up to a year to return any purchases you aren't satisfied with, free shipping in the US, and so much more. Please visit them at rei.com. Join me for a year of hiking in 2025 with the 52 Hike Challenge. Commit to your personal journey outdoors alongside a supportive community and make 2025 your year of hiking. Take your family, friends, furry pets on an adventure they'll always cherish. Plus, you'll gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through nature and hiking. Learn more and sign up at www.52hikechallenge.com. And see you on the trails. There's so many things that we could talk about. Other things. Do you want to stay at an all-inclusive resort? Are you wanting to backpack? Do you want to camp? Do you want to volunteer when you're on your trip? So, questioning more of yourself and what you're looking for. What does that ideal trip look like? Even sit down here and visualize that, paint that picture. For me, I'm just sitting here and thinking through this, and I'm like, an ideal trip for me involves some rest, one spa day at least. It involves maybe a beach. It definitely involves nature. It definitely involves some cultural aspects. And I want to feel overall safe. Like that's important. We're going to talk about safety more in depth. But also, I want a spiritual component to the trip. So, as I'm thinking through and I'm looking at locations, I'm like, does that have this opportunity? Some people love yoga. So, you might want to go to a yoga retreat, a yoga destination. So, that is a very different type of trip and lots of opportunities for that. Lots to think about. Let's talk a little bit about that safety aspect that I was talking about. Do you want to travel internationally or nationally? How important is the reputation of the country that you are visiting? There are going to be some countries out there that are going to have advice like you got to be more careful. There's levels, actually. You could look up that information at travel.state.gov. I also say take everything with a grain of salt because I truly do believe that safety starts with ourselves and then our intuition, and of course, having the street smarts and being realistic. I think that's the thing is know your risks and then take calculated steps once you know what your risks are. I've traveled to Africa, I've traveled to India. I could go on, and how I went through those situations each time was very different. So sometimes I hired a driver, sometimes I asked for help so that I would get from point A to point B. I've traveled in some groups, I've traveled with friends. So there is a internal check that has to happen with yourself. But I would say if it's your first time going on a trip, I recommend you go with a friend. I recommend you go with a group. I recommend you go with your family because you want to get your feet wet. You want to understand what your needs are and you want to have an idea of what works for you and what doesn't. There is a lot more to consider when it comes to safety. I will say that a big part is doing your due diligence, doing your research so that you are informed and you know what actions to take or you know how to deal with certain scenarios that might pop up. I'll give you an example. So, Europe is overall safe. Like, I've never had any problems in Europe, but there is a lot of pickpocketing that happens on trains and very popular places like Italy, or I've heard of this happening in other countries, but I'll just stick to Italy. And yes, it's safe. I've never once felt unsafe while I was in Italy overall. And yet, what do, right? Because there could be pickpockets. I always carry my bag in front. You have your money pouch that you can hide under your clothing. So you take certain steps. Or, for example, don't use anything flashy when you're out there. Another example is not to carry too much cash on you. Always have a backup back at your hotel. And I always carry two debit cards. I leave one at my hotel usually, and then I carry the other one with me so that if something happened and I lost my debit card, I'd have a backup. I usually also do that with money. I hide it in different places. Also, in addition to that, something really great that I learned is to write down like how much cash I have, what I used during the day, what's left, just to keep track of my funds if I'm going to be using cash. Other things, I carry my spot when I'm traveling. I also usually will get a SIM card when I go into a city, and I will have local service and have a way to always stay connected. Let's move into what is important when you are thinking about traveling, your budget considerations. That one's going to be huge. As I was saying earlier, let the dream come up and then let's focus on how you're going to take the steps to make this a reality for yourself. We are going to talk more about budgeting in another episode. So I'm just going to briefly touch on, as you're planning, as you're thinking about where you want to go, thinking about how much money do you have to spend? Because of course, it's not free to travel. You'll need some considerations. Let's just say you're like, you know what? I really want to travel this year. I really haven't taken a lot of trips and I can set aside $500. Or if you say I can set aside $3,000, very different trips. If you have unlimited funds, you might be like, I can spend 5,000. And so those trips are all going to look very different, but they can happen and they are possible. Also, it could start giving you ideas of how to save and make money for your trip. If you're like, I kind of am tapped out right now, but I'd really like to go on vacation in a year, and I know that I'd like to set aside $1,000. Now you can start thinking about how to make extra cash, whether it's mowing the neighbor's lawn, maybe dog sitting, or maybe you pick up some shifts doing Ubering. Maybe you start up your own little side gig or your own side hustle. Those are all great ideas to help you get started on a savings fund. So that is something you're going to have to look at within your own budget and see for yourself. If you're like, no, I really would like to go to Greece, I know I need to set aside $3,000 for that. The flight is going to cost, let's say, $800, and then that leaves you with a budget of $2,200. And you start budgeting down your hotel, your food, and you can start getting an idea of, okay, with this budget, I can go for a week and a half, or I could go for 10 days. I will just say that I've had times where I'm like, I'm going to take this trip and I don't worry too much about the how. I book my flight and then I just let the financial piece fall into place. And of course, I'm always planning, but I'm also always open to, if the universe wants to send me extra money, or sometimes I have a credit card that I can get money back or rewards on travel, which, by the way, is also another great way of getting even free flights. So I use the Capital One credit card, the venture card. And with that card, when I first opened it up, I think it had some 60,000 point bonus offer. And so I spent the 4,000 in the first 3 months, paid it all off. I also, by the way, want to say I do not at all suggest you should get into credit card debt. I always pay my balance in full. I knew that this was a great way to earn rewards, and those points have earned me multiple free flights now. And I've been very thankful that I have that as a strategy to travel. So that really helps me out a lot. And then other things is I have another card where I receive cash back. So once in a while, like I'll go in there and it'll be like, oh, you have $300 worth of cash. Do you want it, or do you want to credit it to your card? So lately I've been cashing it out and I'm like, okay, great. I have extra funds for travel or whatnot. So I just want to give you those ideas. Going back to the whole budget and being conscious, know that traveling doesn't have to just mean that you get on a flight and go international. There's so many places within a 1 to 2 hour drive from your own home that can be a vacation. As I was preparing for this series, I was looking back at a lot of my pictures and my videos, and I saw that I would take a lot of little weekend trips, and they always feel and are little vacations. I did a lot of camping in like Joshua Tree, and I've been there so many times and hiked all around the park. And I always feel like there's something new to see. I feel like there's a new trail to explore. And that's more budget conscious. I just have to budget for my gas. I have my food expense. Once I'm in there, I have my national park pass, which is good for a year, allows me to visit any national park without paying an extra fee. So that's covered. That's a very affordable trip. Let's say it was like $100 or less for my gas. My meals, I would pop whatever I had in my fridge in my cooler, and then I would have 1 or 2 meals out. So, budget about $40 for my dinner and 20 for breakfast. I would say like a $60 budget was pretty good. And then, yeah, if you buy that park pass, which is under $100, and you divide that up by your trips, it's really not much. So I was looking at about a 160, maybe $200 little weekend getaway. And that's really reasonable. It's doable, right? I want you to know that it is possible to do a trip and not spend a ton of money and feel like, oh, I really got to experience something different. And it takes you out of your comfort zone, it takes you out of your day to day. And that's where I think the magic happens. If you have a bigger budget, now you can catch a flight, book a hotel, you have money for food, you have money for activities, and of course, your travel costs, which are going to be your Ubers. Maybe you're taking trains, maybe you're getting onto a bus, shuttles, all of that. There is a lot more flexibility there. Some people like all inclusive resorts on the beach, and that's fine. That's another way of traveling and just relaxing by a beach and reading a book and knowing all your food is included. So there's lots of opportunities there. The more you have to spend, that opens up a lot of doors. But also, you can travel on a budget, even backpacking. On this last trip, there was a young couple that needed a ride into town, and I was happy to pick them up and gave them a ride into town. And they were like, yeah, this is how we get around. We ask people for rides. Obviously, I'm not saying to do that. Be cautious, of course, but I just want to share that you meet all kinds of travelers when you're around the world. And even for myself, I've had to ask for rides before when I've been traveling, because I remember one time in Albania, I really wanted to go to this monastery, and it's almost impossible to get taxis where I was. I was in a really small town, and I was like, okay, I'm going to ask someone for a ride. And so I did, and it was great. They were lovely. They went out of their way, and it was just so kind. And so I like to pay it forward. Of course, I always check in with myself and I see how I feel before I make those choices. I've had to go out of my comfort zone in the past. And so I like to pay it forward now. Here's another tip: think about traveling off season for savings. So let's say you think about going back to this example of Greece. By the way, I love Greece, and that's probably why I am talking about it so much. Greece during the high season, very expensive, especially if you're going to the islands. But off season, which, are specific dates, I think it's like May through June, and then September through October, which still has really nice weather. You could still go to the beach, and it's 30% less than the high season and not as busy, which, by the way, I realize now I do not enjoy traveling when it's super high season and it's really packed. I really prefer more quiet and quaint, not as much noise. That's a really great way to save. And usually flights are going to be less, hotels are going to be less. Usually your food is going to be about the same, but even sometimes activities might be a little bit less, just depends on the time frame that you're there. Another tip is I usually book my flights 3 to 4 months in advance before my trip, and I usually find a good price for my flights. I think that the closer you get to the date, I find that flights go up quite a bit. There's a lot of websites you could use. I use Google Flights. Sometimes I'll also look into what airlines fly domestically in those countries, and then I'll book directly on those sites, because domestic travel within a country is a lot cheaper. Or when you're in Europe, so many flights are pretty cheap. Some other travel tips I've heard from people is sometimes they'll fly out of a hub. Let's just say I live in Albuquerque now. So my direct hub to go internationally is Dallas. So I might fly there first and then get a flight from there to where I'm going. So there's lots of ways, tips and tricks, and I'll let the experts online give that feedback to you. But for me personally, I do know that I have had many positive experiences with finding out what the local airlines are and then booking directly with them. So that's it for today's episode. We've talked about a lot of things, and I hope you have a little bit of clarity. I hope you have a little bit of permission to open up your possibilities and to maybe sit down and write down 3 top places now that you've thought about, oh, yeah, here are things I need to consider. I need to consider my budget. I need to consider if I want to go nationally, internationally. Do I want to backpack? Do I want to take a road trip? As you've thought through that, maybe start writing down your top 3 locations. And once you have that based off of that clarity we just went through, that information, then you can get to your number 1 spot. And of course, take the steps to actually book the trip, whether it's you write it down in your calendar and you just write trip to wherever, even if you haven't booked it, but schedule it in. There's lots of power in that. Write it down. I will go to Africa by June of 2026. And then take the steps that you need to take, whether you need to ask your employer for time off, or you need to figure out what you need to do at work so you can have that flexible free time. And then when you can, then take the next steps to book your flight or book your campsite or book your hotels. I think that will really ensure that you are on your way to your next adventure. And I hope this was really helpful. Please share this with your friends, your family, follow, comment, and make sure to rate us wherever you listen to your podcast. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.